All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the next video in this series, counting up to the best Seahawks on the 2022 team. Today, we are doing a player that came out of nowhere for me. I was not expecting much of anything, if anything at all, from this player. I was thinking maybe he'll make some minor contributions on special teams, maybe he'll play a little bit on defense, but ultimately, I really wasn't expecting a whole lot from him. And granted, the circumstances allowed this player to become what he ended up being for us in 2022. But even if I knew about those circumstances, I still wouldn't have thought he was going to be much of anything for us. And he was one of our best players. And I'm telling you this right now. If he plays a full season at the level that he played for us in the games that he did play in 2022, we're talking about one of the better players in the league at his position and one of the, maybe I would go so far as to say, three best players on the team. So for coming out of nowhere, for massively improving from 2021, for being one of the few bright spots on his side of the ball, I'm putting this player at number 5. So let's dive in and see how I justify it. Okay, number 5 on the list is another guy who really saved our bacon in 2022. I talked about this with Uchenna Nwosu, asking, imagine what we would have done at edge if we didn't have Nwosu playing above expectations. With Darrell Taylor having a little bit of a disappointing year, with Boye Mafe not being ready yet, with Alton Robinson never actually taking the field, it would have been terrible. Well, that's even more so the case with my number 5 player on the 2022 Seahawks, Ryan Neal. And the only reason, I'll tell you this right now, the only reason why Ryan Neal isn't top 3, if not top 2, is that he didn't play the whole season. He missed quite a few games at the start of the year because we weren't playing him, and then he missed some games at the end of the year because of injuries. If you take that out, I think Ryan Neal might be our best defensive player and one of our 2 best players overall on the season. And it's mostly because of how he played, but it's also because of what things would have looked like if we didn't have him in 2022. So let's go back in time here. September 12th, first game of the year against Denver, Jamal Adams makes a couple of plays in that first quarter in the first game of the year against Denver. He knocks down a pass. He gets a pressure on Wilson. He's all over the place. It's looking good. And then he goes down. And then he's on IR. He's out for the year. And it seems like the world is ending. And then we throw Josh Jones out there because Josh Jones was somebody who was impressive in training camp and seemed to be somebody who was turning the corner and about to turn into like a productive level NFL player. And let me tell you, if I were to make a list of disappointing 2022 Seahawks, Josh Jones would be right at the top. For him to have the training camp that he did and then go out there and be that bad on defense when Jamal Adams went out, super disappointing, super surprising to me. It was like all those things that were said during training camp just went out the door. And it looked like we were going to have a complete disaster at the safety position this year, despite all the money we spent on it. Quandre Diggs was playing okay early on, but he wasn't playing at his usual standard. And Josh Jones was turning into an absolute S show. So it looked bad. And then a man named Ryan Neal comes along. And let's put the whole picture together here. Ryan Neal played safety last season after Jamal Adams got hurt. And he wasn't very good. He was passable, he was tolerable, but he was not a good player back there. And I remember watching him that year and thinking to myself, you know what? I like Ryan Neal, but clearly his best position is corner, and mostly dime corner. So at the end of the day, I looked at Ryan Neal and thought to myself, okay, that is a part-time player. That is the definition of a part-time player. What a difference a year makes, because in 2022, not only was Ryan Neal, I think, one of the 5 most important Seahawks, Pro Football Focus thought he was the best safety in the entire league. They ranked him number 1 overall. Now, granted, he missed several games. He missed probably 5 or 6 snaps worth of games. That's a big deal. And that's why he's not in my top 3, if not top 2. But on a per snap basis, Ryan Neal was right up there with the best safeties in the league. And you can go to the PFF page and you can see the breakout here. Not only was Ryan Neal extremely good, but he was also extremely well-rounded. His PFF score of 85.6 is outstanding. But to me, the thing that really hammers home how important this guy was his incredibly strong run defense grade, almost an 80, and his coverage grade was almost an 86. So this guy did it all. I mean, except pass rush, but whatever. He rushed the passer like barely more than once a game on the year. I don't care about that. What I do care about were that his coverage numbers were excellent. I was keeping track of them all year. He was excellent in coverage the whole season. And he was excellent tackling. He was excellent against the run. And think about how bad our defense was this year. How bad would it have been without Ryan Neal? How bad would it have been without that month-long period where the defense was actually the best in the league? From like week 6 to week 9 or something like that. We would have had the worst defense in the league. And who sparked that month-long run? Ryan Neal. That was about the time Ryan Neal became a full-time player on this defense at safety, replacing Josh Jones. So whatever little scraps of competence you can find on this defense, a lot of it comes from Ryan Neal. Excellent coverage, excellent tackling, excellent playing of the run. Really, really awesome stuff. So this ranking is built from a couple of different places. It's built from the fact that we looked doomed at that position before he showed up, and we learned that he had taken several steps up over the course of the offseason. It comes from the fact that he was one of the very few pieces on this defense that was holding it together. Like, the value of somebody like a Ryan Neal, and I know this is going to sound kind of like a joke, but it's really not. The difference between Ryan Neal and Josh Jones was probably the difference between the Seahawks having the defense that they had and the worst defense in the league. And I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. The handful of good players we had on this defense this year, barely keeping us above the dregs of the NFL, really. So a guy like a Ryan Neal, I think, did a ton to preserve whatever little scrap of confidence we had on this defense. And ultimately, that's why we were able to scrounge up 9 wins this year despite having a bad defense. So Ryan Neal, like I said, well-rounded. He made plays. He had a sack. He had an interception this season. His coverage numbers were great. He wasn't getting beat. It's not like he was like a Trayvon Diggs who was getting beat a lot but getting a lot of interceptions. No. So you look at it any which way, and Ryan Neal putting together a, according to PFF, all-pro caliber season was massive. Now, he's not going to get the accolades that he necessarily deserves from what he did in 2022. Obviously, the All-Pro team has already come out. He's not on it. Although I will say this, he got votes. He actually got a lot of votes for All-Pro. So that tells you that even the writers, even the Associated Press is aware of how good Ryan Neal played. You put all this stuff together, and I think you start to realize just how valuable and precious Ryan Neal really was to us in the year of 2022. So yeah, I think he's in the top 5, even though he missed games. He missed 3 games. He only started 10 games. Yeah, that's a lot. But without him, I don't know what we were. I don't know what we are. I can't think of a game he played this year where I thought he was bad, except for maybe the playoff game. And in that game, he was coming off an injury. It's not shocking. So Ryan Neal was so impressive, so surprisingly effective. Not even effective, just really, really good, that I'm giving him a top 5 spot. It's going to be a little controversial, I know, but I feel like he deserved it. So that's your number 5 spot. Ryan Neal ended up being a stud safety for us next to Quandre Diggs. Ended up being probably on a pure snap basis, per snap basis, our best defensive player. Okay, next up we're talking about number 4. We'll get to that tomorrow. See you guys later.